Hi everyone, Jeremy Scott here with another episode of the Re-Emerging Earth podcast, the No Frills podcast, which endeavours to bring a bit of light into the darkness. Talks about all kinds of things related to spirituality, related topics as well, in an effort, as I said, to bring some light into the darkness we appear to be going through right now. And I'm not just talking about the different conflicts that are going around the world, or the crime rate and things like that. I mean, just in general, because we've just come through the pandemic pretty much. I know there's still a few countries that are still, sort of under the influence of that. They're still going through that. But for the most part, we are out of it for most of us. It's just the less well-off nations who are still struggling a bit, I think. But we are getting there. And obviously we've got things that are going on in Eastern Europe and also more recently in Sri Lanka, and there's other things going on around the world still that we don't get to hear about. And these are dark times, yeah. But they're not completely, not all of the dark times that I'm referring to. Because for me, it's how we view life in general. I have talked about this before, where 80% of our thoughts are negative, and that's our view on life, and that's why news programs, even newspapers still sell, horror movies, these shoot 'em and blow 'em up films and things like that. Why they're so popular? Because of the negativity that they portray, and people are attracted to that, just naturally attracted to that negativity. And yes, there is that element, especially when it comes to the movies, of the good guys always winning and defeating the bad guys. But it's how they do it. I mean, they're still shooting and killing and blowing up and things like that. I include myself because I grew up reading Marvel comics and DC comics. I used to go to my local market when I was a young lad. At that time I was around 7 or 8, something like that. But I used to go to this particular store that sold all these comics. Some of them were new, some of them sold at second hand or whatever, and the store owner actually allowed me to stand there for hours reading comic after comic. Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, he's got a new movie out right now which I'm looking forward to. Green Lantern, Silver Surfer, and all these ones. I really got into all these characters and so on. And also as a young lad, you imagine you're going to be that superhero that's going to save the world. Save the world from itself, perhaps in some ways. Root out all the corruption and all the crime and so on, and bring peace to the world. That's our fantasies, when we're young. And then when we start getting older, we'll start to realise that, idealistic as it is, it's probably never going to happen. It's how we feel. And we start going off into more adult ways of looking at things, and we start becoming more pessimistic rather than optimistic. And we do tend to look at things on a darker side then. And even though we enjoy going to the movies to watch the film versions of all the comics that I've read, and it's absolutely fantastic. I really enjoy watching those films, and other ones like Transformers and things like that. I love things like that, the science fiction stuff, and some of the complex stories, some of the not so complex stories, But a lot of people just say, well, that's just a movie, it's never going to be real. They don't imagine themselves being those superheroes anymore. It's just entertainment. And life in some ways is an entertainment. That's maybe in another way, that's why we're here, to be entertained. Because from what I've learned of those who are in the spirit world, you could call it, or spirit realm, spirit dimension, those who are who have been here and passed on and now exist as spirits, their life there is full of joy, it's full of bliss, and maybe a bit monotonous, as some would put it, because it's the same thing as, there's nothing wrong, and it's full of joy and laughter and fun. You can do what you like and you can't do any wrong and all these kinds of things. So they come here to experience that kind of life where things do go wrong, where we do have different thoughts, where our decisions can go awry and our free will can go awry and we choose different paths. And we come here to learn lessons, to work on certain aspects, all these kinds of things. And this is not a new thought. This is a thought that's been around thousands and thousands of years. Why we're here, why back in ancient times, why gods came down to the earth kind of situation to experience what it's like to be a human. Why Zeus came down in human form, to have relations with women, such as Hercules' mother, and give birth to demigods and things like that. Because in their world of plenty, abundance, and all the grapes they can eat and wine they can drink and all that kind of thing, it gets a bit monotonous. So they come down here for a bit of difference, a bit of distraction, and maybe that's what we are going through. Now, I'm not saying that is all true, about the spirit world and all that, because I haven't got any proof, as I said in the last episode, and I can't prove any of this. But I believe that it could well be something along those lines, And I think it's Descartes that said that we come here to have this human experience. We are souls having a human experience. And as others have said, similar kinds of things. And that's why we're here, to serve that purpose. And that's why we don't remember who we truly are. So life in itself maybe is a journey to rediscover who we are, who we truly are. And if we don't discover it in this life, then we can choose to do it in another life or another life or another life, and keep going until we get to that enlightened stage, and then we're back to where we started and we can start all over again. And go through different experiences and so on. There is another view, obviously, in Eastern religions where you have the karmic side of things, that each life that we go through is a lesson for us to learn. So if we were experiencing, say, in one life, say we were experiencing a lot of suffering, a lot of struggle, we were very poor, we were mistreated and so on, perhaps in the next life we're very rich and we can appreciate being sort of wealthy. We can have more gratitude for it, and because of what we've learned in a previous life, we treat people better. It can be the other way around. We could be in a life where we are very wealthy and we mistreat others because of our wealth, and misuse or abuse our power and authority. So then the next life we're at the other end of the scale, and we have to learn what it's like to be mistreated, to be abused, to suffer in certain ways. That could all come into it as well. I'm a believer, if you like, in saying what you believe is your truth. So it could be. I'm not saying it is that the karmic side of things. I'm also not saying that we are here just for a human experience. And I do call this life the university of life, and each of the different countries, nations, whatever, I like to view them as campuses in the university of life. So it's different experiences in that way. So I would say there is an element of that, probably an element of the karmic side of things, where we've got lessons to learn, and we go through each and every life that we have. So I do believe that we have lived before, and we have other lives perhaps to come as well, where we continue to learn new things or experience new things. That's one way of looking at it. It's certainly one way of helping us to get through the current life when we view things from that perspective, that whatever we do here has an impact on our next life. And that could be, for many, it could be a bit of a wake-up call, and to realise, oh, wait a minute, I've been going on the wrong path here. I need to go down this path, change this direction, to this direction, and go down and treat people in a better way, or go down this path and enjoy these things, this way of life. And that seems to happen as well, because we do have those who change their ways, completely, turn around their lives completely. And there is the old saying that a leopard can't change its spots. And maybe it can't, but that's for leopards. We're humans, we can. We can turn our lives around completely. There are so many stories around the world where former criminals, gang members, murderers and so on have turned their lives completely around and become mentors to young people, become involved with the religion, and then, very much involved with the preaching side of things and teaching people, using their experience to guide people onto a better path. So perhaps there is something in that as well, So that's certainly, I would say, a case of where a leopard can change its spots, in that sense, because we're not leopards, We can change our spots. We can even change our personalities to a degree as well. And I was listening, or watching first of all on YouTube an interview, and then I was listening to a recording of a past life regressionist called Denise Lynn, who talks about this in a little bit as well. And she believes that we can actually go back into our past and change it, in the sense of, if we in this life are having a blockage that's stopping us to move forward, we can go into a past life where that blockage may have occurred, or maybe the reason for that blockage, and change it, change the narrative, and that then would change our present. Whether that can happen or not, I can't say. I haven't tried it, if I'm being honest, but it's certainly an interesting concept. If we can improve the life that we have now by going into a past life to make some changes, then fine, that'd be great. There are those, obviously, who believe that you can't change the past, and certainly up to now that's been my view, that what's done is done, you can't change it. But what you can do is go back and forgive yourself in that past life, or even in this life. If you've done things in this life that you now regret, go back and forgive yourself, for those things, and that helps you to move on as well, and forgive others who may have done any hurt or anything to you in that way, and forgive them, and that kind of helps you to release it, to let it go. The going back to past life to actually change things, it might have that kind of same effect. It may not actually physically, if you know what I mean, change things, because that energy is already there, but it might help you to view things better in this life, and make you, or help you feel that, yes, that is now done, I can release that, I can now move on and move into a different direction which is more beneficial. Yeah, so, that could work, couldn't it? And that all helps, all these kinds of things helps all of us to come out of any darkness that we might be in, any dark clouds that may be hovering over us because of past events or even current events. Helps us to overcome these and see things with a bit more optimism, a bit more in a more positive way, in a more positive light. And I'm not talking about Pollyanna kind of thing, and don't really understand what that term means. I believe she was a very positive girl, so oversaw things in a very positive way and so on. But I know it's an American phrase, so I haven't read the story of Pollyanna, so I'm not really up to speed on that, but I know it's a known phrase. But I would say being over optimistic all the time. I'm not talking about being that and seeing, everything's positive, because it isn't, because there are negative things out there as well, and that's a fact. There is, I would say, negative energy out there as well, and you can give that negative energy power by focusing on it, as I mentioned before, especially through our thoughts and actions and so on, you give it power, and that can then take over you and could lead you down a path that you perhaps didn't want to go down to, but you just found yourself along and you carry on with it, you know. So there is that negative energy out there, and you can protect yourself, if you like, you know, from that negative energy through positive actions, through positive thinking, exercises, you know, balancing your chakras, you know, meditating, and using a more, say, an exercise where you can imagine yourself surrounded by white protective light is a very common one to use. And I use that myself. You know, I have what's known as an internal sacred space. So in my mind, it's a place where I go, where I can kind of not shut the world out completely, but I know I'm in a safe space where I can meditate and, you know, think things over, contemplate, and so on. And when I'm going into that space, I go through what I call anyway, a curtain of white light of protection. So when I'm going through that curtain, I'm feeling that energy flow in and around and through me, and it cleanses me of any negativity that may be clinging to me at that time. Maybe bringing into that sacred space that I have, you know, and mine's in a woodland. And you can create your own sacred space. You can change it to whatever it is you want, whatever it is you enjoy. You know, where is your happy space, if you like, your happy spot? Where is it that you, in your mind, you would love to be all the time, where you feel more at peace with yourself, where you feel, you know, that place where you're in solitude, where you can think clearly and so on. That'd be your kind of space, and you can create your own. And that's what I've done with mine. It's where I can go to think about things, contemplate things, and I can then do my meditations there and do my spiritual practice and so on. And I enjoy doing that. You can create that. And that's another way of coming out of the darkness, if you like, because then you create your own space where everything is light, you know, and it's a more positive way. As I said before, I mean, 80% of our thoughts are negative, and that's what researchers, scientists and so on, that's what they've determined. And we can turn that around, as I also mentioned before, you know, we can turn that around so that 80% of our thoughts are positive. It wouldn't be advisable to have 100% positivity, in my view. That's the way I look at it. I think others may say the same, because then you'd be off balance. You know, you'd be too weak. It's like maybe a plant that grows too fast and it hasn't got any support. You know, because you know when you say planting trees or planting these long-stalked plants and so on, you give them, or you know, plants that have long stalks and floppy leaves and things like that, they can sort of like tip over if you just allow them to grow wild, and then they don't really grow at all. But you have these guiding sticks, don't you? So they training sticks, I think they call them. You know, it helps them to grow up in a straight way, and then they gain strength then, even though that training stick could be seen as a negative, if you like, from the plant's point of view. It's restricting its growth in that sense, but it's helping it to grow taller and stronger. And then you can just take the stick away when it gets to a certain level, and it'll stay strong and tall. Same with trees, you know, so it's not growing every which way, whatever. It's growing nice and tall and straight, as you know, as it should be in that sense. If you don't have the stick there, then, as I said, it grows sideways all around, and it becomes weak, and you know, and eventually, you know, it might even die. Yeah. So if we were 100% positive all the time, that's the way we would be in that sense. You know, we'd become weaker and not stronger. That's just my view. I do believe I read that somewhere as well, so I'm probably not alone in that. But yeah, so coming out of the darkness, and speaking of which, the sun's just come out from behind a cloud. And I'm just being bathed in wonderful, gorgeous sunshine. And I'm really grateful for that. Okay guys, that's it for now. Just a few thoughts about coming out of the dark into the light. And it's not always about wars and all the negative, horrible, tragic things that happen in the world, but it can also be our own personal darkness, and how we can bring a bit of light into our own personal world, and how we can create situations where we can enjoy that as well. Until next time, guys, great talking to you once again. Leave a comment, let me know how you feel about this. But until next time, namaste.